Well, first of all, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Really appreciate you taking the time to do that today. So let's kick it off and tell us a little bit about yourselves, where you're from, and what the experience you've had of this issue has been.
I'm from the city of Norcross, Georgia. Norcross is located 15 minutes from downtown Atlanta, so we're Metro Atlanta. It's located in Gwinnett County, which is about 850,000 plus, which comprises of 16 cities. Been in local government for 30 years, county, city. Somewhat of our demographics is diverse, with about 39% Hispanics, about 19% white, about 18% Afro-American, and about 28% Asian. And there's 54 languages that's spoken in the home that's non-English. So we have a very diverse community. The situation that we had was in a Korean spa, and it was involving family, 2 sisters, 2 brother-in-law, and 1 brother. There had been an altercation that evening by some threats, but most of the time when it's dealing with family, they don't tell on the other family because you probably have a heads up if there's going to be some issue. The brother of the 2 sisters came back into the establishment about 8:30. He found both of them, he killed them. He found the 2 brother-in-law and shot them, killed them on site. There was about 20 patrons in there who was frantic. They didn't know what was going on, whether he was going to kill them or whether he just was going to shoot the other victim there. He did shoot himself, but by the time the EMTs got there, he basically was taken to the hospital, but he died on the way, which presented a problem because you got to be ready to handle 5 branches of families from there who's coming in. You got to have your language, there to have someone to communicate with them. And I think that was one of the things that, from a learning point in retro, that we definitely need to build on that.
Okay. What's your experience been?
So my name's Dan Singer. I'm the city manager of a town called the City of Goleta. It sits on the California coast next to Santa Barbara. Surrounds the University of California at Santa Barbara. We also have a fairly diverse community, but a well-educated one, and one that is fairly safe, not accustomed to gun violence, certainly. Our situation was that we had a woman who had been a U.S. Postal employee for many years. She had been out of the state for a couple of years and had been out of employment for those years. She came back to the postal facility in the middle of the night in January of 2006 and ended up shooting and killing 6 of the employees, eventually took her own life, and it was then later discovered that she had stopped on the way by her old place of residence and shot and killed one of her neighbors. So it was a real shock, obviously, to our community.
Very stressful, both, I'm absolutely sure. But what are some of the lessons that you think you've pulled out of these situations?
Well, I think for our community, which is very diverse, is to make sure that you have someone from each one of these different cultures who you can call upon when you have these incidents to help, with the communication, to have them aware of how to communicate with the police department. And I think that's one of the things that we saw from a lesson learned, that's something that we need to be stronger on and build on that to make sure that we're prepared if an incident happens of this magnitude again.
Preparedness obviously is a key element for any community, no matter its size, because this kind of act of violence can happen anywhere, as we've seen. And in our case, we learned quickly the importance of multi-agencies working together, because this was a federal facility, and yet our local sheriff and police and fire were involved. And so that readiness to respond and also have good communication amongst agencies and also good communication with your constituency was really a key for us.
Do you think there's potentially a view in some communities that this couldn't happen to them?
Oh yeah, I think so. And one of the things that's become quite clear is it can happen anywhere. Look at the situation this last week in Washington, D.C. in the Naval Yard, or in our case, in a federal facility that had an armed security guard. It was a high security facility. So it can happen in a movie theater, it can happen in a place of worship, it can happen in a shopping mall, or it can even happen in a high security facility.
Yeah, and we feel that, and still do, that we have a safe community, but sometimes it's not anyone from the outside that does it, sometimes with family disputes. And that's what this was, you know. And I mean, you have a brother who killed 2 sisters, biological sisters, and his 2 brother-in-laws. So are you ever ready for that? No, you're not, because it's kind of something you just don't perceive that would happen.
Well, thank you both very much indeed for joining us today. We really appreciate that. Thank you.
Our pleasure.